Being stabbed by a spider has never been more fun. Hello there guys, my name is Squawker and welcome to the Limbo review. Limbo's graphics are truly one of a kind. The black, white and grey colour scheme really give this game its identity and its atmosphere and really just its general beauty. However, the graphics can conflict with the gameplay from time to time, as it can be incredibly hard to spot traps hiding in plain view thanks to the limited colour palette, since there's only about 3 colours. But I can't punish the game for that complaint when the backgrounds and lighting look great, and it also increases the difficulty of spotting killing devices. So really it should be a complaint. However, if we think about it like this, the devs train us in this game. The only way you're going to get far within Limbo is if you really learn to be observant and look at everything super closely. So in a way, I thank the graphics for making it hard to spot things, spot the traps, spot the solutions, because it really does add an element to challenge. So rather than conflicting with the gameplay, in a way, the graphics really do complement the gameplay, and the graphics do complement pretty much everything else, from the sound to the story and even the replayability. It really does feed into everything. And as for character designs, they are great too. The child looks good, and thanks to his glow-in-the-dark eyes, you don't lose track of his position in the darker levels, which is always useful. And obviously everyone who's even heard of Limbo is aware that there is a great big shog-off spider in this game. Don't worry, the spider looked really good. He looked a bit cartoony, a bit exaggerated, but I think that really once more fits in with the game and fits in with the story. He does look brilliant. He's got his legs, he's got his hairs, and the way he moves really did give me the shivers. It was really creepy the way he moves, because the animations in the game, how things move and that, it's all lovely and smooth. It really once more just builds everything and makes it look brilliant. So overall, I have no complaints about the graphics, apart from the minor one. Sometimes there's a film grain effect in the game and it can get a little bit distracting from time to time, but to be honest, that is a nitpick, because you know what, the graphics overall, they're lovely, and if I'm having to look really hard to find something wrong with them, they must be good. So overall, brilliant graphics. Overall, I really loved the gameplay of Limbo. Gameplay is the core of all games, but when it comes to noticing it, it can go in 3 ways. If the gameplay is mediocre or run-of-the-mill or has been done to death, you don't notice the gameplay at all and just breeze through in a jet of pure ugh. If the gameplay is bad, we notice and we bitch and we moan and we constantly stop playing the game. However, if the gameplay is good and challenges us, we partially notice it. We don't fully notice it, but we praise it. Limbo has a mix of all 3 of these theories I've just come up with. Some of the gameplay mechanics are good, some are bad, and some are average. So we'll start from the top with the good. The good is how well done the puzzles are. Instead of taking a Sonic the Hedgehog approach to platforming, the devs chose a much slower pace which really matches the atmosphere Limbo seeks to create. The difficulty of the puzzles also complements the atmosphere nicely, because the puzzles are difficult, but a glimmer of hope remains because they are doable. They're not difficult, they're not obtuse, and that's why they're so well done, because you can do them, they're not obtuse, simple as that really. Solutions to the puzzles are actually really simple once you beat them. It's one of those really kick yourself in the leg moments whenever you beat a real head scratcher, because you'll just wonder, how did you not spot it? But all you need at the end of the day of this game is just some good observation skills, a keen ear and a clear mind, and you will beat these puzzles. There's no specialist knowledge of philosophy needed or random pub quiz trivia. It's not that pretentious, you don't need to know who killed Jesus or anything like that. So it really does help us once more, because there's no there's no bullshit really. It's just nice, clean, straight up, simple puzzle solving using simple basic platforming mechanics. But we got to drop down to the average now. The platforming is overall very simple and does have few strings to its bow. It's a pretty bare bones approach to platforming. So it does mean the puzzles can get rather samey, as the limited gameplay does limit the possible solutions to puzzles. But it isn't necessarily a bad thing, as the simplistic gameplay does manage to positively contribute to the overall atmosphere, which is always the heart of Limbo. And the difficulty curve also suffers from a little bit of inconsistency from time to time, especially towards the end. Towards the end, some of the puzzles are really monstrously hard, and they are where they belong at the end of the game, in the final part. But at the same time, there are some pathetically simple puzzles turning up too. I mean, maybe I was getting better at puzzle gaming and I just become accustomed to the mechanics, which is why I'm not going to harshly mark down a game on that, because this might have just been a me thing. But I do feel that the final section especially, it was just missing a few teeth and not enough bullshit deaths really to fire my temper up, and you know, it didn't really get myself a sense of self-worth going when I beat it. But I mean, it was still there. I just wish the final puzzle was a bit more unforgiving, a bit more impossible in a way. But maybe I'm just being a bit of a submissive here. But let's jump down to the bad now, the bad of the gameplay, and thankfully there isn't a lot. My only main annoyance with Limbo is the movement mechanics. The movement is rather sluggish at times, and the jumping mechanics are pretty painful. The character's jump height is pretty low, you can't control his direction while jumping, so it's pretty much always just a straight vertical jump. If you want to move, you have to take a bit of a run up, which can be quite tricky at times. And also, you can never quite predict how high the child will jump. I mean, overall, the jump height is low, but sometimes he'll go higher, sometimes he'll go lower. It's a little bit inconsistent overall. But since the protagonist we play as is a child, I will let the game off, because, you know, it's only a child. I'm not evil. So, and once more, I guess it really does help us fit into the atmosphere, help into the themes of the game. But what I'm not going to let off, however, is how inconsistent the jumping is overall. I mean, I can have the slow running, but overall, I was really not liking the fact that you couldn't control your direction where being airborne. 'Cause I mean, it is something you can do, and I think it really would have solved a lot of my annoyances with the game. So that's pretty much all I have to say on the gameplay, by the way. On the technical side, by the way, the game has very low system requirements, which means you can run it on a low-end laptop like I did, and also the game isn't too expensive, so it's good if you're gaming on a budget. Plus, Limbo, so far, in all my playing of it, no crashes whatsoever, so overall, very well technically built. And yeah, just overall, good puzzles, maybe a little bit bare bones, and maybe the platforming mechanics were just a little bit on the shitty side in a way. But overall, I liked it a lot. Once more, this is another category where Limbo does very well. Just like everything else in this game, the sound has a physically small presence but leaves a big impact and a big contribution to building what is the heart of Limbo, the atmosphere. There is hardly any music within this game, but when you do notice it, it is always a work of art. The music is very simple and has no complex melodies or huge tunes which could force the atmosphere into a certain direction, but instead the music is soft and gentle and builds the atmosphere rather than forces it. Some people may say the music shouldn't hide so much in the background in this game when it's clearly so good, but I think the developers made a good choice to mostly keep the music hiding around in the background. And even at that, it is hidden very well, but at the just the right level. It is at the perfect level where you notice it sometimes. Maybe you've taken a break to solve a puzzle and you just hear it in the background, and it can really help build the game up. It's also pretty neat how well the music does also match the gameplay overall so well, and it's to the point actually where listening to it becomes vital to beating some of the end game puzzles. That is excellent out of the box thinking on the devs' part. And the sound effects are also superb. Everything seems so large and echoey, yet small and muted. It really helps paint a picture of being small and vulnerable in a large and dangerous world, especially with how soft the child's footsteps are, and how much of a... They don't even make a big echo when he's like running in like a great big metallic hall, only a tiny echo. And then we have all the industrial equipment in some of the mid-game sequences, which sounds so harsh, and the obstacles may also sound really harsh. I mean, when you die, you really do hear the kid die. It doesn't go overboard, there isn't screaming, but you can hear, like the sound of the blood going, the sound of blood squelching, it sounds gory, it isn't like fluffy, oh no, Mario did a whoopsie, death noise. So it really does contribute perfectly to the environment and to what this game builds up. And as for voice acting, the game completely and totally lacks voice acting, and I completely and totally approve of that. When I think about it, having any of the characters who popped up in the course of this game and having them speak could have easily ruined the atmosphere of this game and also the story. The charm and intrigue of Limbo is how ambiguous the story is and how little we know, and I think adding voices which would go around spraying exposition and what this person is thinking, what that person is thinking, what's going on, what should you be thinking, what should you be feeling, it really would have brought what this game was building up pretty down. It would have really killed the atmosphere. The atmosphere is something delicate. You have to be very careful with how you change it around and what you do with it. Voice acting would have just been a great big throwing a nuclear bomb in it and just watching it all go to shit, really. But, I am glad there's no voice acting, and the lack of it really does help me sink deeply into the heavy atmosphere and get lost in an ambiguous and mysterious world that only I alone can figure out using my own thoughts. Well, so far, Limbo has scored 2 full marks in 2 parts of review, so let's see if we can try for 3 now. The story of this game is fantastic in the sense that we never truly seem to know what is going on. All that we know at the start is that we are in a huge forest and that the only way we could potentially learn something is by basically running to the right, like in any other platforming game. So really, at the core, we have about as much storytelling power as basically the first 2 Sonic the Hedgehog games, since as we only made progress in the story by running to the right. But despite having basically the same core storytelling method as the early Sonic the Hedgehog games, Limbo really makes the core mechanics work hard to provide a very interesting story which goes above and beyond the run to the right and blow up Dr. Robotnik method. The heavy atmosphere created by the game and lack of context really makes us wonder what our purpose is in this world. And what's best is the story is something left up to our interpretation, but without the excessive pretentiousness. Overly pretentious Flash games have really been a big thing in both the past and today. In the past, they used to basically flood Newgrounds where, little wannabe game creators would make very simple platformers, put their deep message in, but they kind of make it very, very strong. And it was still a big thing when Limbo came out, but I think Limbo really did help push the boat out with indie games, helping them become mainstream, because now we have a huge indie market. We have indie games everywhere now. But back in 2010, when this game came out, indie games were only just really beginning to take off. They hadn't quite got there yet, but I think with Limbo, it really did help push the boat out on indie gaming. Since it has made indie gaming mainstream, it did really help the pretentious arty platformer style of the game go mainstream, because you could open up Steam now and there probably are quite a fair few in there. But like I've mentioned, in my experience, there have been some arty platforms which have been really awfully pretentious and unbearable, because they make the absolute worst mistake of whacking you over the head with their so-called deep message. They plaster it everywhere, they make it obvious, you can see it coming from many miles away. Whereas Limbo keeps its message vague and up to the player to interpret into what they want. What I have interpreted through my personal experience of the game could be extremely different to someone else's interpretation. Whereas in a game where the message is so strong and in your face, the emotional and mental connection can be lost because of how you see the game coming a million miles away. Whereas Limbo's sort of shifting theme really kept me guessing. I went from guessing it was themed around capitalism, then to abandonment, then to apocalypse, and then so on and so forth. The game keeps you guessing, it keeps you curious, it has great intrigue, and sometimes we need something vague. Not everything will be solved for us, we have to do our own research. I mean, I used to be training as a journalist before I left university, and now I'm unemployed and looking for work, so my life's completely brilliant at the minute, but you know. A lot of people tend to make their job adverts rather vague, so this is my connection. I look for jobs and I look on the internet for jobs, and there are a lot of jobs like people advertising, but the duties are vague. It's like, you know, you may be doing a photocopying, you may be doing this. Well, no, we're not going to tell you what our company does. You've got to research it for yourself, see. So really, for me, what my emotional linkage to Limbo is, it was just one big vague job application where nothing was explicitly given, and we have to do the busy work, we have to do the research. And like with anything you work to achieve, you feel so satisfied when you complete the game and put together what you believe the game meant. So like what I've said with the job application stuff, that's what I felt like it meant in a way, or that's one big thing I drew out of it. That was like my big personal connection to it, you know, and I was personally very happy with the conclusion to the story and the meanings I had interpreted from the story. But what I really enjoyed was the show and don't tell style of the storytelling. It was a really welcome thing, because we do have a lot of tell don't show now with AAA gaming, but I think here it worked really well. I mean, you know, we saw things going on, the game never told us, once more, it's up to us, we are the storytellers this time. But it's not all perfect, unfortunately. There is one eeny weeny little factor which does kind of bring the whole story down a bit. Any good story really needs a motive. It helps us understand the protagonists, our antagonists more and more, and helps us empathise with them and understand what their goals is and why they need to do this. You know, what is their adventure? Why are they doing it? Limbo, however, could have been totally perfect if it avoided motive, but it didn't. I know you have to write a tantalising pitch on the Steam store page in order to tempt people to buy the game, but something better could have been written. The sales pitch tells us, uncertain of his sister's fate, a young boy enters the Limbo. This one sentence doesn't necessarily ruin the story for me, but it does taint it. I'm not going to spend the next hour talking about this because I'm not really in the mood for doing the whole English language thing where we take every last little bit and we explore every little theme and all that, blah 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 blah. But I will say the story really did keep me hanging on and very curious, because once more the game had achieved great intrigue. But the thought of a child's sister was always hanging at the back of my mind, because I always knew the ending would somehow involve the sister. So it really I ended up feeling a bit like a ferry or a taxi or a legal guardian, where I just had to get a protagonist to something he wants. We're kind of falling back to the standard Sonic the Hedgehog and Mario style of storytelling in a way. I would have liked it if I had no idea what the end was, what would be coming at the end. Would we be facing a boss, our redemption, so on and so forth. Because if we didn't know about the sister at all, we would have had a stronger story, because we would have had a stronger and more intriguing end game. But because the player because the player's been given so much autonomy to interpret his own themes and meanings and from what is being encountered in the game. So it would have been nice if we could have gone all the way and just tried to guess the motive of the boy, rather than it being reduced once more to the Super Mario level of find and rescue Princess Peach. So far, pretty much all the games I have reviewed on this channel tend to fall flat at this category. I'm not getting rid of this category though, as I feel replay value is still a very important aspect, as it can really be the deciding factor on whether or not we want to buy a game. Is it something that's just going to be a one-hit wonder, then you're going to regret spending your money, or is it something you're going to play over and over again? So will Limbo be another game that succumbs to having very little replay value and being a one-hit novelty? Well, not really. The game does have some large replay weaknesses, but some decent replay strengths to counter it. Let's run down the weaknesses first. As I have mentioned in the gameplay segment, the puzzle platforming gameplay has very few strings to its bow, and all the puzzles only really have one way of being solved, and once you have solved them, you probably won't forget how to solve them. You'll quickly pick up a solution. Things do come back to us, our brains do have a tendency to store random things, or that might just be me, but this means another run through can be fun to do, but it won't really be as challenging as the first time, since the difficulty depends entirely on the puzzles rather than variables, because it's basically one fixed difficulty. And there's no variables, stuff doesn't change speed at random. The only really variable you have is the stupid jump heights and weird jump mechanics. But that is the biggest weaknesses of the game's replay value, and the same does go for a lot of puzzle platformers or really badly designed platformers in general. The linear one-path approach to this game, while absolutely brilliant for the story and the atmosphere, does ultimately harm the replay value, as after a few playthroughs you will end up knowing what comes next all the time, which drains away the suspense and the mystery, which makes the game more of a routine process than an adventure. But there are a few secrets to find and figure out, which counters this weakness. The secrets are well hidden, and I like how the clues are given through the achievement titles. There are only one-off collectibles, however, but the reward you get for finding them is always really nice, actually, so it does make doing a few more playthroughs to find the secrets worth it. Also, the game does come bundled with a non-collectible Steam achievement, apart from the standard you beat the game achievement, which will keep the completionists such as myself coming back. The hardest achievement is to beat this game, which is a minimum of 1 hour long by the way, and you have to do it all in one sitting, with less than 5 deaths in total. So paired up with a dodgy platforming, which can sometimes fling a bullshit death your way, this achievement will require plenty of practice to do, and it's something I will probably have a go at too, actually. I'll probably be ripping my hair out of this one, but it's definitely an excuse for me to play this game more, and I will be going for that achievement. So overall, I can see myself playing this game a few more times for the achievements and the collectibles, but also as something to do when I have a few minutes to spare. The game isn't particularly long, and since I really did love playing it so much, I probably will still find myself loading it up to maybe kill some time. If I have, say, like half an hour or an hour to spare, I can, just load it up, have some fun with the puzzles. And also, I really would like to just load it up again whenever I want, because it's such a unique experience. If I want to have a unique experience which is truly unique, well, I can just load up Limbo and play a game where I can feel fear, anger, care, sadness, relief and tranquility, but never boredom. Well, thank you all for watching this review, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Do you agree with the score I gave it? Do you not agree with the score I gave it? Well, what do you think? You can let me know. Also, in the on the screen there is a link to my playlist of my Let's Play of this video game, also known as Limbo, and also a link to the wonderful, wonderful man who donated this game to me, or at least it would be, but YouTube doesn't let me link channels in annotations, so link in the description please. So please check out Tengu230 because he is a brilliant man whose brilliance is only getting more brilliant, as will be seen in the coming weeks of this channel. So that's something to look forward to. But well, I for one welcome Limbo to the very, very tippy top heights of my leadership tables. So will it stay there? Will it not stay there? There's more to come in the future, but thank you all for watching this Limbo review. Goodbye.